We've survived our 90-day no shopping challenge and we're going shopping. Woohoo! Hi, we're the Provident Preppers.
We have now finished our 90-day no grocery shopping challenge and we've just finished going shopping.
We're going to teach you what we've learned from all of our pain, misery, and suffering.
Check this out.
As a family, we decided we needed to check and see how prepared we really are. So we embarked on the 90-day challenge, and this is our final report.
After week 12 report, we still had a few days left to reach 90 days. So this is what we ate during that time. Of course, we had eggs, rice, and some of the last of our peaches and a few Asian pears. One of the things that this challenge has taught us is the need to prepare ahead and to be able to have the foods that we eat on the go.
Our daughters have very busy schedules, sometimes going from 3 or 4 hours of dance to another 2 or 3 or 4 hours of play practice. So we've been providing them with meals on the go so they could eat while we are driving. After 12 weeks, we determined that these little pint jars are just a great way to go.
Yeah, much better than the plastic containers. So the rest of us eat soup, like you see in your lower right-hand corner, in a bowl. But the girls have to eat out of the mason jars. And I've done all kinds of experimentation with beans because I'm writing a book on how to use the beans that are in your food storage. And this recipe was delicious. It's German pancakes with apples along with some garbanzo bean flour or chickpea flour. Now, truth be told, the girls in the family loved this, but it wasn't a favorite of the guys. And our friend Debbie came over for a little tour of our place and some advice on prepping. And we gave her an autographed copy of our book, The Provident Prepper. And she showed up a few days later with this delicious peach freezer jam. We had just had that really hard frost, and her neighbor said that the peaches that were still on his tree were gone and there was nothing that we could do with them. But she said, I can still make jam out of those peaches. And she proved it. The jam was delicious.
The next morning, we had that jam on cinnamon toast, along with peaches and eggs.
Now, Ann Bear for Freedom started tempting me. I am addicted to chocolate, right? Especially the chocolate chips, because I don't like to have a lot of sugar in my diet. So the chocolate chips, while they do have sugar, it's a concentrated source of chocolate that kind of satisfies me. Ann and I were chatting over YouTube comments, and I broke down and I realized that I had all the ingredients to make fudge, and I made an entire batch, and I ate the whole thing. Yes, I was sick. But one of the things that we learned, we were running really low on butter and I had a very small amount left. And so I decided to use canned butter. And it's interesting to note that the kids do not like canned butter. They can totally taste it whenever it's in a recipe. And so that's probably something we won't store a lot of in the future. My friend Jennifer called and she wanted to make some fire cider tonic with me so that we would have some for the flu season this winter. But I was missing some of the ingredients. I had lots of them, so we bartered. We made this deal that if she would get the organic apple cider vinegar and the fresh ginger, that I would provide the rest of the ingredients because I had them, and most of them, out of my garden. So together we worked, and before long we will have some fire cider tonic for this winter. We are seasoned preppers. We have been building and using our food storage for many years, which means that we have revised this plan over and over again, trying to perfect it. And so if you look, we were never at risk of starving, ever. It turns out that this challenge was more of an inconvenience and a way to fine-tune our plan.
And it worked. On the last day of our challenge, we had these things down in our storeroom, the pears, the onions, and tomatoes in various stages of ripening.
And this is our refrigerator on the last day of the challenge. It had significantly changed from what it held on the first day of the challenge. This is our produce drawer in that refrigerator, and for most of the challenge it had been packed full of peaches and plums, but now most of those are gone and there's just a few Asian pears left and some random vegetables.
And this is our freezer on the last day of the challenge. Still a few things to eat up.
I think the deep freeze is where we have the biggest dent in our food storage. We ate a lot of the food that we had in our deep freeze. Went through most of the meat. We still have some burritos left. Before the last frost, we harvested all of our peppers, which enabled us to have a nice store of fresh peppers in the freezer for the upcoming year. We also have some delicious black raspberry freezer jam buried in there now. This is kind of my trophy room. I love the way that our bottled foods look. This is a lot of food that feeds our family very well, and most of it comes from the crops that we grow ourselves. If you look on the bottom, you'll see that the new bottles are all stacked there, waiting for me to reorganize everything so that we make sure that we do a first in, first out kind of inventory.
During the challenge, I think we saved around $700. A lot of that was because we weren't eating out, but also because we weren't in the stores, there weren't impulse purchases. We also reduced waste, and we used a lot of inexpensive basic staples in our cooking and other eating. We consumed a lot of garden produce, and we learned to live without some things. I think in a lot of ways that was really, really good. So let's extend it for another 90 days and see if we can save another $700.
Not a chance, cowboy. We have suffered enough. I like the good life. Sergeant Rudy had asked us if we were keeping track of weight loss, and this was actually a really good idea, so thank you for asking us to do that.
I lost 6 pounds. I think mostly because there weren't convenience foods that I just reach out and snack on. So it was very healthy for me.
And I lost 5 pounds, which kind of surprised me because I actually felt like I was eating more because I had the cravings for the chocolate and I was trying all kinds of things to be able to satisfy that, which meant I kept eating more, but I ended up losing weight. Kenny and Christy are both unwilling to disclose the amount of weight that they lost or gained because they said they really don't know. At the beginning of the summer, they started to pick up a little bit of weight because their dance classes were over and because that huge amount of exercise that they used to get on a daily basis was suddenly reduced. But then as soon as they started to dance back up when school started, then they dropped the weight. So we're not quite sure where they stood in it. But Ben, the 13-year-old who eats everything in sight, his weight stayed exactly the same. Exactly 100.6 pounds. Go figure that one.
This was the shopping list that we created during the last week of the challenge, and I was surprised there weren't as many things on there as I thought.
It was kind of amazing because we were definitely missing out on a few select items, but nowhere near as much as you would have thought for not being able to go to the store for 90 days. In planning food storage, I think it's really important to plan for the variables. For instance, we had a fluctuation in the number of people that we fed. We started the challenge with 2 adults and 3 teenagers, but we ended the challenge with 3 adults, 3 teenagers, and 4 grandkids that were visiting on the weekends. That's a huge difference in the amount of people that you're going to feed. So make sure when you're planning your food storage, you plan to have more people than you originally intend. Also, changes in food preferences. In our storage, we have a case of SpaghettiOs, and yet that was something that our children liked when they were young, but now they're teenagers and they don't like SpaghettiOs anymore, so it just sits on the shelf. So it's a good idea to account for changes in dietary preferences as your family changes and grows. And the final variable that I think we really need to plan for are the seasonal changes. In the summertime, we eat very differently than we do in the wintertime. In the summer, we tend to eat cooler foods and salads, things like that, where in the wintertime, our diet consists of a lot of chili and soups and stews, hot bread, things that warm you from the inside out. Make sure when you plan your food storage, you take into account the seasonal changes in your menu. Now, the food storage tips. Take note of these. They're important. Store plenty of fats. Things like olive oil, coconut oil, vegetable oil. I wouldn't do the canned butter anymore. I didn't like that one. Make sure that you're storing fat because you use so much more when you are cooking from basic food storage than you do with your regular cooking. Store an abundant supply of basic staples. The rice, beans, wheat, flour, everything that you need for a foundational diet. Because if you have those items, you can get creative and do a whole bunch of different things. But if you're missing those basic foundational foods, there's not much that you can do.
And get rid of the old foods or the things that you're just not going to eat. That's just false sense of security. Make room for the things you will need.
Keep your storage room organized. It was interesting to me that on this challenge, I would go down thinking I had another bottle of something downstairs, and yet I couldn't find it, only to find it a couple days later in a place where it really didn't belong. Keep your food storage room organized so that you know what you have and you can get it when you need it.
And we always encourage you to grow a garden. A garden provides you with a fresh supply of good vegetables and fruits that really make a difference.
And not only that, but the garden enabled us to not deplete our food supply so rapidly, because we were actually building our food supply with the things that we were harvesting and bottling for the next year. A garden is really an important thing. And the fresh eggs, what a great source of fat and protein, and highly versatile.
And make sure that you're eating what you store and you store what you eat, and rotate it out so you keep it as fresh as possible. Some of the things most missed in our family, eating out was a big one. As we mentioned, there's so many of our traditions that involve eating out.
And the kids really miss the convenience foods. Things like cold cereal and chips and crackers, because it didn't take very long for our store of that to become depleted. And I personally missed the chocolate chips. The girls missed fresh dairy most, especially the yogurt. I had to ration the butter to make sure that we had enough through the end of our challenge, because we ate a lot more toast than we normally would, and there's nothing that replaces fresh butter on toast. Kenny missed the ice cream like crazy.
And I missed the watermelon.
And Ben missed canned pumpkin. Just before the challenge started, he had gotten on this kick where he was making pumpkin bread with chocolate chips on a regular basis. It was like his signature recipe. And I don't normally store a whole lot of canned pumpkin, so we ran out, and that made him very sad.
And I missed the lettuce also. I love salads, so I missed being able to have that lettuce in our fridge. There were some really good benefits that came out of our No Shopping Challenge. One of those is we wasted less food. We were more careful about making sure that we use our resources wisely.
Because food suddenly became very precious. We didn't have the ability to just run out and get anything that we ran out of. We improved our skills and developed some new ones. My natural yeast bread making skills are amazing now. And Ben knows how to milk a cow.
And we did a better job in the garden this year.
The kids especially really grew in creativity and resourcefulness. As they knew that they had needs that they wanted met, they found ways to get those needs met. For instance, our neighbor needed his hay hauled, so those kids worked for 3 days to haul 19,000 pounds of hay and stack it. The first day, he bought them Subway. The second day was pizza, and the third day was Chinese food. These kids thought that they had scored big time.
And we had a healthier diet. We were eating more basic foods and a lot of food from the garden.
We learned to be satisfied with the less, and we refined our food storage plan.
And our confidence in our preparedness level went up dramatically.
At the end of this challenge, I realized that we totally have the ability to survive an extended grid down situation. Before, I had always hoped that we would be able to do that. Now I know, between our garden and our chickens and our stored foods and bartering, we absolutely can do this. I developed a greater appreciation for bartering as we were able to exchange some of the things that we grew in our garden for other things that we were missing out on. For us personally, these are items that we are going to increase in our storage levels. You have a totally different set of circumstances, so this definitely might not be for you. But for us, we have to store more cat food. We ran out. More chocolate chips to keep mama happy. Butter, it's just so important to us, so we are going to store more butter. Coconut sugar is a short-term storage item, and we ran out very early in the challenge, and yet that's something that I need because most of the time I try to avoid refined sugar, and I eat honey, real maple syrup, and some items with coconut sugar in it, so I was missing that. We ran out of flour before our challenge was done, so we used to have 50 pounds on hand. Now we're going to up that to 75 pounds. In our family, we don't eat a whole lot of meat. We kind of use it as a flavoring. So 75 pounds is actually a little bit less than 1 pound of meat per day for our family. But I think that would be an adequate supply for us to keep in our freezer in addition to the canned meats that we have downstairs. We ran out of raisins, so we upped that quantity. And we upped the parchment paper because as I'm making bread every day, I like to put the dough inside of the parchment paper and lift it down into the Dutch oven in the oven and bake it like that. It's kind of a mess to make bread in a Dutch oven without the parchment paper, so definitely needed more of that. And I need to add a few more backup spices to my list.
Some of the things that we'll probably store less of in the future, tuna. Nobody really eats that anymore. Also some of the canned fruit, because our kids prefer the home bottled fruits better. SpaghettiOs are gone, which is great for Dad. And the canned soups. We only need a few for short-term supply. Other than that, we don't eat them.
Traditionally, we have stored a lot of pasta because it's so easy to make. However, I am gluten intolerant, and so now I can't have pasta. But Ben absolutely loves pasta, and it's a meal that he can easily make on his own. But I think that we need to reduce the amount of pasta that we store so that we can rotate through it all. We learned some valuable lessons through this challenge. The first is that I am psychologically addicted to shopping. I would get those ads for the case lot sales or see a killer deal on an ad, and it would drive me crazy that I couldn't go and buy it. A lot of times I would buy things that we really didn't need. Not being able to shop for 90 days has helped me with this addiction. I found that it was very time consuming to bake everything from scratch. Not only did we bake our own bread, but we had to take care of all of the fruits and vegetables in the garden, and we harvested them and we processed them, and we had to soak the beans, and there were just so many things that you have to do when you're cooking everything from scratch that it was very time consuming. And along those lines, planning ahead for everything is just hard.
And the healthier diet was really a plus for us.
It was rough at first. The first 2 weeks of this challenge were really hard. But then we quickly adapted, and then it just became kind of the new norm, and we did really well. I still had issues with chocolate. We discovered that I need chocolate. Our advanced planning and preparation made all the difference in our ability to thrive during this challenge.
And bartering was a fun skill that we picked up and has really made things a lot better during this time.
The garden produce and fresh eggs made this more sustainable. Otherwise, we would have just been draining our resources. But because of the garden produce, we were actually able to build our supply instead of just depleting it. And we learned that the men in the family complain less. Yes, the women are a bit whiny, the guys are tougher, but we enjoy the finer things in life, and we don't want to change that. We learned that real people have real needs, and you need to plan for those needs. So I need to store more chocolate. Whatever your addiction is, make sure that you plan for that. Whether it's caffeine, coffee, Diet Coke, whatever your addiction is, make sure you put it in storage.
And again, probably a little more chocolate for Mama. But overall, I think we are ready for future challenges. Not that we want them to come, but this 90-day challenge really helped us understand that we can do this.
Yeah, we can. We got this. Wisdom dictates that whenever you learn lessons, that you develop an action plan to implement that. These are the things that we are going to do to implement what we learned into our action plan. The first was celebrate our success, and we had already done this. It was funny because the kids, where did they want to go? They wanted to go to Cafe Rio or Costa Vida. I'm sorry, I've had way too many beans and rice in the last few months to celebrate with beans and rice again. So I vetoed that, and we settled for Sizzler so that I could have the salad bar. But it was a wonderful experience to be able to go and just celebrate our success.
Because of the 90-day challenge, we are updating our storage plan to adjust for the things that we are changing.
And we're restocking the supplies to meet the new par levels that we have set so that if we do this again, or when we need to do this again, we don't run out of anything.
We are also organizing our storage rooms to make sure that we get rid of the old and the things that we're not going to use and make room for the things that we will.
Overall, this was a great learning experience for our family. We feel so much more empowered, especially the children, after having survived this, that you know what, we can face the challenges that come. And now for the question of the day. What have you learned from watching us suffer these last 90 days and from the lessons that we have learned? And what have you learned in your own challenges that makes it so that you are better prepared for whatever the future might bring? Comment below. And thanks for being part of the solution.